Hey guys, Amelia here. I'm gonna be doing a commentary today on a solo engagement that turned into a little bit of a duo engagement in my Vedmac, and I'll be going over the fit and kind of one of the reasons that Vedmac is one of my favorite ships for solo and duo. So the clip starts out. I've tackled a Gila here in MGAM, which is a pretty popular system in Vale during super late USTZ. So China is quite active. So I know that this fight's going to escalate, and boom, already Hyperion is coming on grid as my Vedmak has landed. So I switch my point over from my Stiletto towards the Hyperion to hold that down while I run down this Gila and start really just spooling up with my Vedmak. Um, so we can already see, one of the main reasons that everyone loves trig ships, the spooling mechanism. So the spooling is really great because your initial damage is really quite low actually, and the reason that is because you have really good tracking, which makes you good as an anti-tackle platform. But the reason that the trig ship is so cool is that you don't just stop there, right? You can turn into a major damage source because of this spool mechanism. Um, so I'm fast enough here to kind of just kite out his drones while I just build up my spool. And yeah, I don't have the best tracking sometimes here, um, but the goal here is just to really just spool up and slowly whittle this guy down. So we see a signable land, and this Gila's going low shield. I already have really good spool on him, but I begin to switch to this signable, and the reason is because if he is scram fit with these Gila drones on me, it can get really hairy really fast. So you really always want to deal in small gang and solo and duo, whatever it be, deal with the thing that is threatening you first. So this signable here is the main threat for me. So I begin to turn to him, keep kiting those drones out, and just start spooling up on him. So I'm going to let him come in a little bit. I want to keep my distance around 20 km in case he has a scram, as I said. But you'll see that he's dipping down really quite fast. And one of the things you can see that I'm doing here is that I'm heating my gun. And the reason that you can do that so early on is because the trig only has one gun, which means that the amount of heat that you generate from heating your gun is significantly lower. So you can see I'll turn in now as his shield is going down. You can expect him to be buffer shield because of how long it took me to chew through that shield regen. So I burn in, I land the web, I put it on my medium newts, and he's pretty much going to be cap dry here. Signable has notoriously bad cap, 2 cycles of medium newt. He's probably just out, and he melts down really nicely. The Gila unfortunately warps away during that time, but a scythe came in. So I'm going to start burning over towards this scythe and begin to kill him. All this is happening while I'm holding down this Hyperion with my Stiletto ult and kind of just waiting for this to escalate. So we can see Brent here landing with an Ikatursa. It makes me feel much more comfortable on grid because I don't have to worry about tackle nearly as much. It's one of the biggest reasons that flying solo can be pretty scary is, if you get a Ramjag with a Nos on you, you're never going to get off him, and you really can't track him, even with newts, even with this fit, which has so much utility. But the minute you have a secondary person who can sit back at range from you while you're tackled and just kind of clear that tackle off, you feel a lot more confident. Um, so we're kind of just on this site, switch to a cult for some max damage here so we can get on this hype. All of this is happening while we're holding this Hyperion down, which is kind of our bait. He's going to be the person that's going to keep escalating this content forward. So we have 2 slashers landed now, and the scythe is going quite low. We make the call to stay on this scythe. If I'm spooling a cult, this guy's gonna melt real fast. And the really scary thing here is that if the slashers land, it's scram on my stiletto. So one of them is ramming me, which is really nice, and not going for my stiletto, and he kind of just melts right after the scythe dies. You can see the power of trig tracking here between the Ikatursa and the Vedmac, how fast these things just die. And the other slasher is kind of just burning off into Africa. He slowly starts going for my stiletto, but he's pretty much dead by the time he even thinks to try and go for scram. So the fight's kind of just relaxing here. I really should be, getting my armor full HP and repairing it and reloading. But as I'm kind of thinking about all this stuff, a Loki lands. So a Loki can be really scary for us if he's properly fit. They can be very, very tanky, and with the Ikit and the Vedmac damage, we might not have enough damage until we really begin to spool up. And more stuff can land while that's happening. So Loki immediately goes for the Ikatursa and gets webs on him, and we start spooling on him. We see his shield chunking, so he's either active shield or he's armor fit. And with this first rep, we can see that. And it's probably an extra large booster with how much he just boosted there. So we're not sure if it's ASB or if it's actually going to be active. So we start burning in to follow, keep our damage on, keep spooling. We put mass ECs on him because Brent's already webbed. And we can see him just chunking, and that's before we are even applying newts. So I start to burn in here and try and get my medium newts on him and my web on him. I got a nice drive-by scram with my stiletto a little bit ago, which got some separation for Brent, so he's not on top of this Loki. Assignable lands right as this Loki's going low. Unfortunately, the jam drones land a cycle on Brent, so we're not able to kill this Loki, and it resets his spool immediately. So the signable's already in, but Brent regains his lock. I've got my medium newts on him, and you can see he's not repping at all anymore because these newts are pressuring him so much. So this Loki's just gonna flop over, and for reference, guys, that's like a 1.6 bill Loki right there that we're able to just kill two guys super easy. So we switch over to the signable. It's gonna be same as the first one, except it's gonna go down a little bit faster. We got 2 damage chips on grid now. Burning into him, making sure he's not getting away. Get that web on him. Get our newts on him. Really just start pressuring his cap out. And this is one of the main reasons that I love flying with, a stiletto alt or something. You don't really have to even do that much with it. Just hold tackle on that, get a good drive-by scram every now and then when you have optimal. Because we're not having to worry about this hype at all and worry about our content kind of drying up. Because we know that this Hyperion's here. He's an easy target. He's not like an Ishtar or something who's going to keep putting drones out on us and keep pressuring our tank. He's just kind of held there. And so we see some more tackle land here. Super easy cleanup for 2 trig ships. Nothing to worry about. But we can see also local's been climbing a little bit. So we need to be a little bit careful about what they're going to bring in here. We see a Osprey on D-scan. And we just start kind of looking at the field, looting. Brent calls that the Loki was quite blingy fit. So we burn over trying to find that wreck, but unfortunately they must have shot the wreck, whether it be signable or the Hyperion, I'm not sure, but the wreck is no longer there. So we could not manage to secure that loot, unfortunately. So right about here, I'm gonna pause and go into the Python window here and kind of go through the fit a little bit. So the reason the Vedmac is so strong, and I see so many people mistake with their fits here, is that they're not willing to fit these extra ACRs. And fitting these extra ancillary current routers allows you to do so many things with the Vedmac. So the Vedmac is strong because it has utility, and that's the main reason you bring it in your small gang setting. And not even small gang, but solo, duo, trio. That's really where the Vedmac shines, and that's because the smaller your gang is, the more utility matters. The larger it gets, you can have more defined roles. You can bring in like an Oracle. You can bring ships that do only E-War like a Carries. But when you're flying in this 2-3 man setting, it's really hard to have those specific roles. You want ships that can do multiple things. So for example, for your Vedmac, you need to be able to do anti-tackle. You're a trig gun with trig tracking. Checks Baryon, 52 tracking. Check. You need to be able to do large amounts of damage. Let's move over to Mystic. We spool up to 630. That's amazing. That's great. We have range to be able to do that. We have speed. We have good tank. We have 20k EHP plus another 12k in our Ancil. And the most important thing, guys, these newts. So I don't know if you guys have ever flown this kind of triple newt Vedmac, but if you ever apply triple medium newts to almost anything in the game, it pressures them a shit ton. It can be battle cruisers, Brutixes, Harbingers, anything you can turn off their guns. You can turn off an Orthrus's MWD and burn away. You can any of these T1 cruisers. They have horrendous capacitors, so you're able to just newt them out and take advantage of that in so many different ways. You hold the mobility then because they can't burn around, they can't point you, they can't do any of these things. So this triple medium newt fit is really, really, really fun to play with. And you can also bling this up a little bit. I have some friends who swear by this Fed Navy web here. So, switching this up for an extra 60 mil gets you a lot of extra range. So we're going from 18 kilometers with the Fed Navy web heated to 13 kilometers with your Tech 2 web. That's a huge difference if you can web the tackle before it gets on top of you. And then when it does get to you, it's slowed down already, and then you hit them with newts so they can't land the scram and they can't re-engage their prop, which means that they're just going to burn away freely and they're just going to melt because they have no prop and they're just going to die. The other thing that this Navy web allows you to do is it opens up some CPU compared to the T2 web, which lets you fit an ENAM, which gets your tank up a little bit more. And this is the third fit that I'm actually flying in this video. It's a little bit more blingy. I like to fly bling stuff. There's a Velis gun here, which opens up your fitting a lot, and then you also have 2 medium newts only this time because I'm trying to fit A types. These A types really open up your range, so you can see, we're at 17 plus 8 kilometers. so that lets me newt out to 25 with an optimal 17. That's pretty insane. So before your tackle even gets onto you, they're both webbed, 18 km web, and newted dry, and it's just a free fire. It's one of the best things about Vedmac is when tackle decides to ram you and then they just die. It's beautiful because you can do that in a kiting ship compared to a nomad or something where if a tackle rams you and they get that scram, you're dead. But in Vedmac, you can just newt them and burn off. Um, Going forward, what else can I do with this fit? Talk about some drones here. I like to fit some EC600s. It's very helpful both in solo and in small gang context. Whenever anything's problematic, like when we saw with that Loki landed, both Brent and I just dropped our ECs, threw them on him, hope for a lucky jam. In case that fight ever starts to escalate crazily, or if we want to get some range separation, that's how you do it. ECs are so valuable in that context. I think we also just got a set of warriors to clear some tackle. And then for boosters, I like to just kind of bring along uh, Exile, help my tank out a little bit, some Iokira or Drop to help your tracking. Even though you have 52 tracking with like your tracking ammos, getting extra tracking always helps. You got to think about how you apply your damage, not just your raw DPS numbers. And then I also like to bring around Pyro and Pyro and Overclocker to depending on if I need a little bit more damage or if I need a little bit more speed. But yeah, that's kind of the fit and the setup that I've been running with. Let's jump back into the clip. So we're kind of here just slowly hitting this Harbinger, or sorry, Hyperion, waiting for something to come in to escalate this fight. We can see local's been slowly climbing up. We're in MGAM, we're in a very popular system here in China prime time, and we're hoping to get a bigger response. So we just begin spooling up on this Hyperion, pressure his tank a little bit, make sure that he's crying out for some help, and a slasher lands. So we're just going to quickly switch over to the slasher. We're not too worried about keeping our spool on the hype because, again, he is our content magnet. We don't necessarily need to kill him, we just want to be able to hold him and keep this content train flowing. One of the other things that I'll touch on is the choice to do a Tech 2 cap booster versus, a meta cap booster or a faction cap booster. The reason I really like that is because for the Tech 2 cap booster is you get to fit 3 Navy 400s into your cap booster. Instead of if you had a meta or a faction, you would only be able to fit 2. Now the big difference here is a lot of people fly 800s actually. And if you're going to fly 800s, Tech 2 versus faction, it really doesn't matter that much. But for 400s, it matters significantly. And the reason I prefer 400s is because you're able to keep cycling your cap inject more frequently. Compared to 800s, where you have more inject up front against newts, it's actually worse because you're able to prop more frequently under newt pressure with 400s. So that's one of the reasons I prefer 400s on most of my ships when I'm doing that. I think one of the big fallbacks that people are afraid to do with the Vedmac is fit these ACRs, which allow us to get these newts and things like this medium cap booster. People have been doing like these cap battery fits or these no newt Vedmac fits, no plate fits, and have like 3 polycarbs or something in their lows. You don't need that speed, guys. You have to think about the meta shift that we're in right now, right? So your speed only matters up to a certain point, and the Vedmac is fast enough with maybe 1 speed mod, maybe 2. You don't need to fit all of these extra mods. And if you decide to not fit those mods, you can switch to these ACRs or more tank mods and get these extra newts and extra utility, which makes you such a powerhouse in the solo duo context. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This video kept on escalating, or sorry, this clip kept on escalating and eventually got into a nice huge nightmare fight, which I'll have a video out shortly. Hope you guys enjoy. Thanks.